Taxes was waiting around for your taxes to be done, which led to worrying about not getting any money back. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes in a day to get you up to $4,000 fast with a refund advance loan. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Expert filing only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Refund advance has $0 loan fees and 0% APR. Refund advance loans may be issued by First Century Bank, N.A. or WebBank. Terms apply. Subject to approval.
ZPG Ice Maidens.
Hello and welcome to ZPG Ice Maidens, the only dedicated Women's National Ice Hockey League podcast.
Part of the ZPG network of UK ice hockey podcasts.
We're in partnership with the Hockey Arca, hockey clothing for hockey people, worn by the best
and hated by the rest.
Listen to the ZPG network.
Get a 10% discount on everything
at hockeyartclothing.co.uk.
Just enter the code ZP10 on checkout to get your discount.
We're also part of the Sports Social Podcast Network,
the biggest sports podcast network in Europe,
boasting over 450 podcasts
for more than 15 different sports.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of ZPG Ice Maidens. We're still catching up with some of the hockey which took place before the Christmas break, so we have the final 2 weekends of action from December for you. So plenty to get through, and we'll start with the Elite League where the Queen Bees were taking on Guildford. Queen Bees ended 2024 with a massive 8-0 win at home to the Lightning. Catherine Gale gave her side the lead just 19 seconds in when she scored from Estelle Ip. She would score again at 9:59 when Ip combined with Rachel Cartwright to make it 2-0. Gale then turned provider in the second period when she combined with Abby Sylvester to set up Cartwright to extend the Queen Bees lead. The Slough Bay side would add 2 more goals before the end of the second period. Ellie Shaw netted her first goal for the Queen Bees with assistance from Rebecca Voslinski before the Canadian-born youngster found the net herself after she was set up by Gale and Cartwright once again. The reigning champions added another 3 goals in the final period, with 2 coming just 22 seconds apart. First, Estelle Ip fired home from Gale and Miley Drazy before Millie Georgie made it 7-0, almost straight from the face-off. Yuk Ting Lau rounded off the game with her first Queen Bees goal with 1:19 remaining. Abby Sylvester collecting her second assist of the game. Player of the game went to Estelle Ip, with former Queen Bee Izzy Eggington taking home the award for Guildford. Mackenzie McNamara made 12 saves on her way to a shutout, while Marley Easton made 31 saves across the first 40 minutes. Kira Waddington coming on in relief for Marley for the final period, and she made a further 11 saves. We move now to Division 1 North, where Caledonia returned to action after having had 4 weeks rest as they travelled to face Nottingham Vipers. But it would be the hosts who would open the scoring when Olivia Oxley scored 2 minutes in from Sarah Kimber and Chloe Kaiser. But the early season pace setters would bounce back from that early setback to take a 4-1 win and take another 2 points with them into the festive break. Beth Nelson drew her side back level at 9:47, with Jess Malloy collecting an assist on the play, before Katie Trachtenberg connected with Kate Gillis to give the Queens the lead before the period was over. Emily Luck combined with Laura O'Sullivan to put the Queens further ahead at 26:59, with Trachtenberg converting on the power play 3 minutes later after she again combined well with Gillis. Player of the game went to Katie Trachtenberg, who had a phenomenal two-way performance and netted the game-winning goal, while Molly McGillian picked up the Queen's Blinder Award, which Rambo actually forgot, so Molly was presented with a sock instead. He's hoping it hadn't been worn first, though, Molly. Molly was making her D1 debut in what was only her second senior game, and she was fearless throughout, coming close to bagging a goal herself as well. Sheffield Shadows gave it their all against a quality Kingston Diamond side. The Hull-based outfit went ahead inside the first 7 minutes thanks to Danny Newlove, who netted on the power play from Grace Cooper's feed. But Sheffield had started strong and were level by the end of the first period, Ishbel Wright scoring against the club she plays for in the Elite League from Grace Leeming and Hazel Wilson. Despite the South Yorkshire side stepping up their game and applying intense pressure, Kingston managed to pull ahead early into the second period when Melissa Veal scored from Mia Forbes and Millie Fulbourn. The latter would score at the midpoint of the game to put the Diamonds further ahead against her former side, with Forbes and Jazz Little collecting the assists. Mia and Millie were forming quite the double act, with the pair combining to great effect again, this time on the power play, early into the third period for the former to score. Jess Wooding also collecting an assist on the play. Millie Such netted a consolation towards the end of the game, with captain Kelly Walsh getting the assist. Kate Taylor completed the scoring with Zoe Marples and Grace Cooper also collecting points on the play. The Diamonds continue their unbeaten start to the season as they closed in on the top spot in the league as they headed towards the Christmas break. Player of the game went to Kingston's Nevaeh Allsop and Sheffield's Eva Solossi. A tight game saw Solway Sharks come back from 3 goals down against the Nottingham Vipers to take a point from a 3-3 draw. It was the second game in a row that the Sharks had shown resolve and grit to come back from a deficit. Alia Hemming gave the East Midlands side the lead just 3 minutes into the game before Olivia Oxley doubled the advantage ahead of the 8-minute mark when she put home a feed from Paige Dance. The former Solihull Vixens forward Dance then made it 3-0 at 10:09 when she scored from Chloe Kaiser's pass to give Nottingham a comfortable lead. But in Cassie McGregor, Solway have one of the best players in the league at their disposal. The Dumfries-born player, who has recently just signed a 2-way deal with Whitley Bay of the Elite League, pulled a goal back before the period was over to give the Sharks fresh hope. She then scored twice in 38 seconds inside the first 5 minutes of the second period to spectacularly draw her team back level. In what was an action-packed game from both sides that contained lots of chances, the tension remained right up until the final second of the game, where the Vipers were awarded a penalty shot, which was incredibly saved by Lizzie Meikle, and the game ended all square. Player of the game went to Molly Walker for her hard work throughout, while the Sharks' hat was awarded to Megan MacArthur. Kingston Diamonds finished 2024 with a bang as they claimed an emphatic 11-2 win over Solway. Danny Newlove opening the scoring after just 94 seconds, with her goal coming from a superb pass from Gretzky's office by Evie Tyndale, who was making her senior hockey debut from Whitley Bay. The Hull Bay side doubled their lead on the power play 5 minutes later, when the third member of that line, Kate Taylor, also found the net. Newlove then made it 3-0 soon after, when she connected on a pass from Jess Wooding, before Melissa Veal made it 4 38 seconds later. There were no further goals until the second period, when Newlove duly completed a hat-trick at 22:55, the Beverley-born forward combining well with both line mates Tyndale and Taylor once again. Kingston went further ahead just after the game's midpoint, when Lois Tomlinson converted on the power play from Carla Clark. Lydia Lutwich scored twice a minute apart before the period was over, with Ruby Newlands assisting on the first and Danny Newlove on the second to give the Diamonds a commanding 8-0 lead as they headed into a second intermission. Solway used the special teams to their advantage early in the final period, Cassie McGregor scoring a short-handed marker at 44:22 before scoring on a power play a couple of minutes later from a Mo Muir assist. That seemed to wake Kingston back up as they scored a further 3 goals inside the game's final 10 minutes to complete the win. Millie Fulbourn netted the first from Ketz Robinson before Lydia Lutwich notched her hat-trick marker a few minutes later with a short-handed goal. Ruby Newlands, who assisted on that goal, found the net herself inside the last couple of minutes when Lutwich and Jess Wooding combined to set her up. In what was a great game all-round for Kingston, a very well done goes to Evie Tyndale, who finished with 2 assists on her debut and took home the Player of the Game award. We move on now down to Division 1 South, and after their great start to the season, Chelmsford suffered a tough loss as they welcomed the Firebees before the Christmas break. Despite putting in a great effort, unfortunately the Cobras couldn't find their way onto the score sheet and were shut out 8-0 in what was a heavy defeat. Rebecca Voslinski and Isabel Bennett both scored twice, with Talia Davidson-Wright also netting. Sophie Kingsbury grabbed her first Firebees goal, as did Ella Stauska, who then went on and grabbed a second around 10 minutes later, earning herself the Player of the Game award. Firebees goalie Mackenzie McNamara claimed a shutout with 33 saves, while Cobra's captain Charmaine Easton was her side's Player of the Game. Swindon clinched a much-needed road win as they travelled to Milton Keynes. However, the Falcons worked themselves level after falling into a 2-goal deficit. Emma Comer gave the Top Cats the lead from Ellie Shaw and Lily Endicott, before Joy Scott-Russell doubled the lead a couple of minutes later when putting home from Comer's assist. But with the game just moving past the midpoint, MK grabbed a goal back when Josie Milton scored from Catherine Ruff. Milton, who is on a 2-way deal with Cambridge, has taken to Division 1 hockey really well, and her goal was just reward for her recent performances. Harriet Palmer brought the Falcons back level 4 minutes later thanks to a power play marker, with Katie Anderton getting the assist. But all that hard work was undone when Swindon regained their lead 10 seconds later, Ellie Shaw scoring from Katie Reid. Swindon then took control in the final period. Joy Scott-Russell netted her second of the game 7 minutes in from Emma Comer. Comer, who would end the game with 4 points, grabbed another assist with just seconds remaining when Lily Endicott made it 5-2. Having had a hand in all but one goal, it was not a surprise that Comer ended up with the Player of the Game award, with Michelle Lyle collecting the award for Milton Keynes. Bristol Huskies came from a goal behind to beat the Swindon Top Cats at the Link Centre and remain unbeaten for the season. Lily Endicott had given Swindon the lead on the power play during the second period from Amelia Williams, but 2 goals in as many minutes at the start of the final period turned the game in Bristol's favour, Mackenzie Kelly scoring both for her first goals for the Huskies. Unsurprisingly, she took home the Player of the Game award. Becky Osman collected an assist on the equalising goal, while Lily Endicott was named Swindon's Player of the Game. Bristol's Ellen Pereira-Murray leads the Huskies with 7 points. Ellen started off the season strong, bagging 4 goals in just one game. Katie Edgington is second with 6 points after making a heroic comeback from a bad injury at the end of last season, while Becky Osman and Mila Peroni are tied in third with 5 points each. On now to Division 2 North, where we start with Caledonia, who were at home to Widnes, and they battled hard against the Wild, but 5 goals from the Wild in the second period put the game out of reach. Natalie Bell had given the Queens a surprise lead inside the first couple of minutes with her first goal on Scottish ice. However, Gemma Brown soon turned the score around, netting the equaliser after going coast to coast before setting up Lisa Gillen for the go-ahead goal before the first intermission. However, Chloe Young had fired her side back level before the session was over to ensure the scores were level heading into the second period. Remy Delsett collected the assist. Widnes soon worked themselves back into the lead though, with Gillen adding her second, closely followed by Amanda Armstrong, who combined with Jennifer Hickey and Karen Cooper. Abby Aldred then made it 5-2 with what was her first goal for the team, with those 3 Wild goals coming less than 2 minutes apart. Charlotte Cramp put Widnes further ahead before Caledonia grabbed one back through Isa Kenza-Bekova, with Morena Festerazzi registering an assist on the play. But the period really did belong to the Wild, with Charlotte McAdam also finding the net before the period was over to make it 7-3. It was also her first Wild goal, and she did well to return to action after having earlier left the ice due to a collision into the boards. Queens got another goal back inside the first minute of the final period when Rebecca Nixon scored from Abby Henderson. But Widnes rounding off the scoring with 5 more goals. Victoria Connolly and Lisa Gillen scored either side of a Charlotte Cramp power play marker before Cramp scored twice more to bag a third period hat-trick and 4 goals in total. Queen's Player of the Game went to Nikki Robertson, who played both forward and D during the game with a lot of gusto throughout. The Queen's Jester Award went to Erin Riley, who continues to grow each game in what is a fledgling goalie career, and this game showed nerves of steel, particularly given the amount of traffic out in front. Abby Aldred collected the Wild Player of the Game. Caledonia ended 2024 with an 8-4 loss to the Telford Wrekin Raiders. Whilst the team hasn't yet picked up any points this season, they are improving each game, and to give a terrific team like Telford such a battle shows how far they have come. Telford wasted little time in taking control of proceedings when captain Heather Metcalf put home from Tiffany J. Miller and Taylor Jackson just 20 seconds in. There were 2 goals to the good in the 6th minute when Erin Tipton found the net from Metcalf's feed. Caledonia got a goal back early into the second period when Violet Mayer scored from Lucy Clough, but Miller soon restored Telford's 2-goal advantage when she converted on the power play from Rebecca Craig and Metcalf. Miller netted again a couple of minutes later, with Metcalf again having a hand in the goal. Elise Blakely pulled one back for Caledonia with over 5 minutes left to play in the session. However, Telford netted twice in just over a minute before the second intermission to hold a 6-2 lead. Carver Gledhill and Rebecca Craig both finding the net. Miller completed her hat-trick 19 seconds into the final period before Caledonia pulled 2 goals back in just a minute and 9 seconds. First, Anna Comrie found the net from Nikki Robertson before Beth Nelson fired home from Lucy Clough to make it a 3-goal game with over 16 minutes left to play. For Anna Aircon Comrie, it was her first career goal. Anna started playing hockey last season and featured in just one league game after making her debut in January in what was a friendly with Whitley Bay. This year she has featured in all her side's games, and her goal is just reward for a lot of that hard work. Anne McLean made the game safe with 5 minutes to go when she put home Rachel Logan's feed. Telford's Heather Metcalf was named player of the game, with player's player going to Evan Tipton. Caledonia's player of the game went to Marie Galloway, who blocked shots, battled in the corners and had some good charges up the ice. Queen's Jester was awarded to Jordan Troop, who had her feet going the whole game. After an intense 60-minute battle, the Raiders left Scotland taking home the points. They had travelled up north with a short bench, but were determined to get the win. The game was a constant end-to-end battle for the puck, with a lot of laughter along the way, as some of the Raiders couldn't quite grasp jumping over the boards, resulting in a few faceplants. Telford's game with Kingston a week earlier was postponed due to severe weather warnings. A make-up date is still to be announced. As mentioned in previous episodes of ZPG Ice Maidens, we have a cup competition for you this year, which is very much a new thing for the league and is only taking place in Division 2. So there's 3 groups in the south and 2 in the north. And the north group really got underway this month with Leeds facing Kingston and Widnes taking on Sheffield. But we're going to start first in West Yorkshire, where Leeds Roses took control of their cup group after claiming a 7-1 win over a tough Kingston Diamond side, who had battled well throughout. Kingston started strong and scored just 44 seconds in, Izzy Oswin netting from Nevaeh Allsop inside the opening minute. However, that seemed to stir the Roses into action, and they were back level 4 minutes later when CJ Harrison scored from Taylor Simmons and Tori Johnson. Jazz Daniels scored from Holly Hancock inside the final 5 minutes of the opening session for Leeds to take a slender lead with them into the break. Harrison scored her second from Simmons and Michelle Ross to make it 3-1 late in the middle session, before the home side netted a further 4 goals in the third period. Daniel made it 4-1 from Simmons and Morgan Walker 2 minutes into that final session, before Walker made it 5 soon after from Kirsty Hodgins and Jazz Tolson. Harrison completed her hat-trick late on from Simmons and Eve Sadler, before adding a 4th on a short-handed play to complete the scoring. Player of the game went to defender Kim Sharples. Across the Pennines and onto Merseyside then, where the Sheffield Shadows exacted revenge for their shock defeat to the Widnes Wild on home ice earlier in the season, with this being an emphatic 10-2 win. Sheffield made a fast start, netting twice in the opening 6 minutes. Molly Houghton and Emma Taylor-Lonsdale with the goals, before Katie Fairclough, who was lucky perhaps to be back playing after only missing 1 game for what was a vicious slash, cut the arrears before the end of the period. The Shadows netted twice in 29 seconds in the early part of the middle session to take firm control of the game. Alicia Williams and Houghton with her second of the game, making it 4-1. However, Fairclough scored a second for Widnes to make it a 2-goal game heading into the third. Sensing the game wasn't quite over, Sheffield looked to crash home their superiority, having outshot their hosts 24-5 in that final session. They got further goals from Williams, Dora Mail, Taylor Lonsdale, Eleanor Shaw, Williams again and Amber Usher, while there were assists for Lucy Hurst and Afine Idiabor Moses. Emma Taylor-Lonsdale ended the game with 5 points from 2+3, while Elisa Williams registered a hat-trick with 4 points with her 3+1. Widnes gave a debut to Kath Thornton, who has been out of the sport since last icing with the now-defunct Flintshire Furies back in 2010. She came away with the Widnes Player of the Game, while Sheffield Goldie Kirsty Robson took home her side's award after making 18 saves in the first half of the game, before making way for youngster Chloe Day, who went on to make a further 12 saves. There was action in two of the three cup groups in the south. We start in Group 1, where Coventry took on Peterborough, with the highly anticipated close matchup between the Coventry Phoenix and the visiting Peterborough Phantoms. After a well-fought battle, the home side fell just short, and the game ended 3-2 in the visitors' favour. Right from the start, Peterborough's star player, Hannah Messerasova, didn't give the Phoenix defence any chance to settle into the game, as she poached 2 goals early in the first period, her first arriving just 54 seconds in, before she added an impressive short-handed effort 5 minutes later, Hannah Danks collecting the assists on the latter. That early Coventry power play was to set the tone for the rest of the game, as penalties continued to affect the flow, with a huge 26 minutes dished out in total across both sides. Not letting the early score deter them, the Phoenix came back swinging, and after killing their first 5-on-3, just before the second Phoenix player exited the box, Jenny Maybe went on the offensive and found the net, with an assist from Sophie Gallen, the goal going down as a short-handed one. But 3 minutes later, Messerasova gave the Phoenix a slip once again, and made it count for her third goal before the 15-minute mark. Former Kingston Diamonds defender Phoebe Maffer collected the assist on the play. A Phoenix power play later in the first went unrewarded, and the period ended 3-1 in Peterborough's favour. Entering the second period, a shuffle of the Phoenix lines made for an even matchup, with lots of one-on-one battles and offensive chances at both ends. The Phoenix outshot the Phantoms 16-11 in the second, but both goalies did a fantastic job, and the scoreless run continued. Going into the third, a flurry of penalties prevented the Phoenix from really capitalising on positive momentum in the home team's favour, with the penalty kill on overdrive after another 5-on-3. After successfully killing the penalties and Peterborough being called for tripping, the Phoenix bench called a timeout. The Phoenix power play line came out with clear tactics, lining up at the offensive face-off, and took just 5 seconds for Jenny Maybe to score her second of the game, assisted once again by Sophie Gallen. The team began to think of the equaliser, but were yet again hindered by penalties, with a third 5-on-3 to defend against. Shout out goes to Ice Maidens sponsored Lucy Farrisvet on collecting her first ever penalty in almost 10 years of playing hockey. For those of you who were wondering, it was for a delay of the game. Naughty, naughty Lucy. With the game almost over, Peterborough were called for interference, and on the power play going into the final minute of the game, the Phoenix coach pulled netminder Ellie Jo Cole to go with 6 outskaters. Despite all the team's best efforts, it was not to be, and the Phantoms stood tall to claim the win. Ellie Jo Cole in the Coventry net faced 44 shots for a 93% save average, and received the Player of the Game award. Jenny Maybe was awarded Players Player of the Game with what was a brilliant performance. An honourable mention must also go to the Phoenix penalty kill, which was truly fantastic throughout the game, not conceding a single goal. Peterborough's Player of the Game went to Hannah Messerasova. Hannah played amazingly, scoring her first hat-trick of the season and keeping the Phantoms in the lead. Peterborough finally pulled through for their first win of the season. We move on now to Cup Group 3 and to Gosport. But before we get onto the game, the Solent Amazons announced an exciting signing in the week leading up to it. Former GB Under-18 international Louise Beresford, who, as a top-class athlete, Louise had previously iced with the Queen Bees in the Elite League from 2012 to 2019. But after stepping back due to a shoulder injury, she made a return to the ice while at university in Sheffield with the Bears in the WNIHL. Louise is a multi-sport talent currently playing for Longham Ladies FC in the Dorset League and now pursuing a PhD at Bournemouth University. Louise is making her comeback to WNIHL hockey. With Louise named to the lineup, the Amazons were involved in another close game with Oxford Midnight Stars. The Gosport side came out on top in an 11-goal thriller to put them top of their Cup Group standings to close out the year. It took Louise just 3 minutes to get onto a score sheet as she combined to devastating effect with Chantal Eyre and Eleanor Stoner to spot the Amazons a 1-0 lead. Solent would double that lead just 16 seconds later when Eyre set up Leah Truman for what was the best start they could have possibly wished for. Oxford quickly responded though and got a goal back 80 seconds later when Charmaine Coles scored from Lauren Summers, the latter a former Queen Bees teammate of Beresford. Despite that explosive start, there were no further goals in the opening session, but the Amazons made another good start to a middle period. Chantal Eyre, the main provider, as Beresford netted her second of the game just 15 seconds after the restart. But Oxford would cut the arrears again with less than 8 minutes remaining in the period. Harriet Jones scoring from Lucy Smythe and Linda Pearson to make it 3-2 as the sides headed into a final session. Yet another lightning-fast start to begin the final period saw the Amazons net 3 times inside the first 49 seconds. Chantal Eyre grabbing the first 2 before she laid on Beresford's hat-trick marker. All 3 goals coming during a span of just 26 seconds. Beresford and Lauren Kenton also claimed assists on those plays. Despite Solent holding a 4-goal advantage, Oxford refused to admit the game was over. Lauren Summers pulled one back at 46-22 before netting for a second time 10 minutes later, with thanks to Ruby Roach's assist. When Amy Gunning scored from Coles to make it a 1-goal game less than a minute later, Oxford had fresh belief they could actually take something from this thrilling cup tie. However, they were unable to find an equalising goal inside the final couple of minutes, and the Amazons could claim an important win. Louise Beresford ended her Amazons debut with 3+1, while Chantal Eyre came away with 2+4, having had a hand in all her team's goals. Player of the game went to Hannah Driver. Back to league action now then, and in Division 2 South, the Cambridge Kodiaks produced a statement win against a decent Slough Siren side back in mid-December, with the home side getting off to a perfect start when Yoa Hoshizaki set off on the first of many amazing coast-to-coast runs. On this occasion, her shot was saved, but the rebound was pounced on by Julia Maybury. Christina Ashley from Sarah Carvenan made it 2, before Hoshizaki and Alicia Anderson made it 4-0 to end the period. Slough's Lucy Mathias was given a boarding penalty at the end of the first, allowing Cambridge to start the second period on the power play, and the Kodiaks capitalised with Ashley getting her second of the game. Ashley scored again, with Anderson bagging a further 2 for both to complete their hat-tricks, before the power play line of Claire Lebry, Julia Maybury, Catherine Leake, Rachel Holland and Hoshizaki all worked well to break down the Slough penalty kill and allow Hoshizaki to bury her second of the night and round up the second period scoring at 9-0. The start of the third saw Cambridge extend their lead further, Sarah Carvenan from Ashley scoring a well-worked goal. Despite the scoreline, Slough continued to persist with their quick and aggressive game plan, forcing errors from the Kodiaks to earn a 5-on-3 power play. This was killed off well by the home side, but shortly after returning to full strength, Esther Haskins buried a rare effort on the counter-attack, with the assist going to Elise Willoughby. The Sirens' revival was quickly cut short though, as Hoshizaki scored her third just 10 seconds after a restart to end the scoring at 11-1. Slough's player of the game went to Esther Haskins, with the star of the game going to Perry Edmiston. Chelmsford Pythons' second game of the season took them across the water to Kent to face the Invicta Dynamics. The hosts may be new to the WNIHL for this season, but they sat at the top of the Division 2 B-League standings going into the game. In the first period, Chelmsford quickly settled and were ahead within 3 minutes. Kezia Birchall scored her first goal, and what a strike it was! A goal that perhaps even the Chicago Blackhawks' Connor Bedard would have been proud of, with a snipe of a shot over Dynamics goalie Stacey Randall's shoulder and going bar down. Soon after, Invicta drew back level when Charlotte Louise Davenport-Jeffrey put home from Robin Mapp. Despite that setback, Chelmsford didn't drop their heads and kept playing offensively. They got their reward when Summer Basing buried the puck in the net for her first goal. Having assisted on the first goal, Birchall returned the favour as the pair combined well. With the realisation that it was now a winnable game for Chelmsford, they started the second period on fire. Determined, they kept pushing hard, playing with good pressure on Invicta and closing down the majority of their rushes early on. But after a scrap in front of the Pythons' net, the Dynamics equalised again. Kirsty Horan applying the finish. But Chelmsford showed great resolve to continue pushing and went ahead for a third time when Stevie Burns shot through the 5-hole after Amelia Pearman set her up. The third period was end-to-end hockey, with Python's goalie Lilith Wright making some amazing saves to preserve her side's lead. With around 7 minutes to go, Katie May Smith netted an insurance marker to make the game all but safe. Chelmsford continued to dig deep, working their socks off, and at the final buzzer took their first ever win in the WNIHL. Truly a day to remember then for the Essex-based side. Player of the game went to Lilith Wright, with the hardest worker award going to Ava Adamson. Special mention goes to Charlotte Jagger for stepping up to the Python side from the Chelmsford Adders development team. After the previous weekend's great performance, Chelmsford were looking to take advantage of the positive momentum and wanted to start the home game with Invicta with the same passion and energy they had brought the week before, and they did not disappoint. The Pythons scored the opening goal just 47 seconds in, thanks to Kendra Wright, and were 4 goals to the good before the 7-minute mark, when Christina Powell netted twice in a couple of minutes and Summer Basing also found in the net. It would be 5-0 before the period was over, with Ava Adamson also scoring. Second period saw Chelmsford really get into the game as they began moving the puck around with confidence and mastery, whilst really showcasing their tactical ability. Further goals came thanks to Katie Smith, Powell with a hat-trick marker, and Becky Freeland. Chelmsford continued their offensive campaign into the third period and were camped in the offensive zone for much of the session. A further 4 goals arrived thanks to Freeland, Powell with her 4th of the game, Kezia Birchall and Smith with her 2nd. The Pythons really impressed, not only with their ability, but with points coming from defenders as well as from all 3 forward lines. Their performance also reflected in the shots on goal, where Invicta's goalie Stacey Randall faced 55 shots, while Chelmsford's Lilith Wright faced only 5. Unsurprisingly, the Player of the Game award went to Christina Powell with her 4-goal haul, while Kiara Thomas-Lambert took home the Hardest Worker award. The Pythons' progress this season has certainly been a welcome change from their first 2 campaigns. They now have 2 wins and a draw from their first 3 games. Bristol Huskies weren't in Division 2 action, but now is probably a good time to check in on their progress, having only just joined the league in the summer. Amy Parfitt and Martina Chironova lead the team in scoring, with a further 5 players having registered at least 1 point. Julie Saint, Hope Corson, Evie Corson, Eleni Rudge and Beth Worth. And we end this episode with a roundup of what's been going on in the Under-16s League. And starting the December results, we go to the north, and Kelso to be precise, where the Iron Maidens took on Manchester Storm, and it was something of a doozy. It was a finely poised game and a great advert for girls hockey. Emmy Kariainen gave Manchester the lead a couple of minutes in before Molly McGillian equalised from Violet Mayer at the start of the second session. Lachlan LaBelle then restored the Storm's lead 4 minutes later when she converted on the power play from Alyssa Flemington. However, Caledonia were back level moments later when Elise Blakely netted a short-handed marker from Zoe Galloway and Molly Walker to make it 2-2. But Manchester went ahead for a third time before the period was over, with Kariainen netting her 2nd. Molly Walker then scored 12 seconds into the third period to bring Caledonia level for a third time in the game. However, Manchester were not to be denied, and Kariainen and Julie went on to natch her hat-trick 2 minutes later, courtesy of another power play, with Ava Eyre collecting the assist. Ultimately, the Storm would win 4-3, but there were plenty of positives to take away for the Iron Maidens. Player of the game went to Aria Colwell, who, until the game, had only played some under-10s cross-ice as a goalie. She did herself proud by stepping up, and the Heavy Metal Award went to Sarah Donlan, who was a force on her debut for the club, picking up an assist. Manchester's player of the game went to goalie Caitlin LaBelle. Hard work and a team effort ensured the Storm brought 2 points home from a very close game on a challenging rink, and Caitlin was instrumental in the win as she turned away some 39 shots from some talented shooters, and it shouldn't be underestimated how difficult that is on a small rink with unmarked boards. The Iron Maidens lost 9-1 to a very tough D-side team the following week, with the North Wales side rampaging to a 6-0 lead in the first, it proving just too much for the Maidens to make a dent into. However, there were a lot of positives to take away once again, including debuts and the fact the work rate of the team never dipped. Player of the game went to Catherine Mitchell, who jumped between forward and defence throughout the game, and, despite never having played the former, asked a lot of questions of the opposition with her forecheck, leading to the lone Maidens goal, scored by Violet Mayer. The Heavy Metal Award went to Lucy Donlan, who made a debut appearance in goal, having not expected to ice. D-side, who only arrived with 10 skaters, relied on Sophie Rose Davis, who bagged 4 of their side's goals. Autumn Lennon grabbed a brace on her way to a Player of the Game award, while Hallie Morgan, Poppy Ward and goalie Violet Lennon also scored. Eva Gibson was named the team's hardest worker. Whitley Bay continued their unbeaten run with a 7-1 win away to Manchester Storm, keeping them top of the league standings in the north. The Beacons soon held a 3-goal advantage as they went into the first break with a goal from Brooke Royce and 2 from Rebecca Goldring. Claire Wilson added a pair of assists too. Whitley started the second period well, finding the net again just 40 seconds after a restart when Evie Tyndale scored from Holly Smith. Manchester did pull one back a minute later though when Alexandra Vesey scored from Ava Eyre and Katarina Glover, but Goldring notched her hat-trick marker from Heidi Dunn before the session was over to make it 5-1. Goals from Wilson and Dunn, a couple of minutes apart, midway through the final period, saw the Beacons skate off with a comprehensive 7-1 win. Claire Wilson was named Player of the Game, with the Hardest Worker award going to Holly Smith. In the south, the Bristol Puppies had to come from behind, much like their senior team, to win on the road against the Swindon Top Kittens. The home side went ahead on 8 minutes when Macy Hicks scored for Miley Drazy, but Ayla White netted twice in less than 5 minutes midway through the game, before Amelia Worth added a third before the period was over. Does sound very familiar, doesn't it, with that game between the Top Cats and the Huskies. Drazy cut the arrears inside the final 4 minutes when she put home Poppy Oliver's assist, but it wasn't enough to prevent defeat to their local rivals. Bristol's Sophie Benson faced 27 shots and came away with the Player of the Game, while the Spirit of the Game went to Alyssa Harris. As we welcome the new year in, it seems a perfect time to reflect on the Puppies' season so far. Special mention has to go to leading scorer Ayla White, who has got a whopping 8 points, followed by 5 players tied in second place with 3 points: Molly Lehman, Amelia Worth, Emily Parfitt, Nina Reeves and Misha McBean. Chelmsford Rattlesnakes clinched a 12-0 win away to the Milton Keynes Storm, with the mercy rule kicking in just beyond the game's midpoint at 23:01. Star of the show was Cara Jones, who netted 4 times, with Freya Price and Izzy Zizhinska both grabbing hat-tricks. Matilda Howell and Zinnia Quinter also finding the net. Credit goes to Milton Keynes goalie Elysia Novick, who faced 54 shots in the game. Well, that brings this week's episode to a close then. We will see you all next time. Thank you, and bye for now.
Please make sure you're following us across all social media platforms
to keep you fully up to date with all things WNIHL.
On Facebook,
follow Ice Maidens, the voice of women's ice hockey,
And check out the website at icemaidens.wordpress.com.
on Instagram and on Twitter.
you can find the podcast
At ZPG Ice Maidens.
and for YouTube.
you can subscribe to Zero Pucks Given.
Please like, follow, share and subscribe
It all does wonders for spreading the good word.
of the ZPG network.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.